Good morning. Another week of fair game Laguna Beach. I'm Tom Johnson, along with our mayor, Alex Rounaghi. Alex, good to see you. Busy
Great to be
times
with
out
you.
there.
Great to be with you.
Now, rumor has it, and we don't need to get into this and everything, that you have been busy signing proclamations. You've been busy handing them out,
Have
uh,
been.
kind of as it winds down to the end of the school year and things like that. But your mayor duties, you're staying busy. You've had a lot of meetings this week. Talk about, first of all, the fallen police remembrance that you just completed.
Yeah, so yesterday there was a beautiful ceremony, and it's an annual ceremony where we recognize the fallen police officers, in our city's history. So we've had two, John Cucci, who that was recent, and Gordon French, and it was beautiful to hear the remarks. Officer Detective Martinez, who was actually a fun fact, he was my DARE officer when I was in elementary school at El Moro. He was the keynote speaker, and he knew John. He spoke about his dedication to service, and yeah, and then Gordon French, who he was someone was escaping from the city jail, and then he got into an altercation with that person and was killed, and he actually bled out. And part of the reason why he died, aside from his selfless sacrifice, was because there was no hospital in the area, and so it took so long for him to get to a hospital. And that was actually the genesis for the building of the hospital that now exists in South Laguna. So I think, recognizing those who've fallen is important because we owe everything to our law enforcement who keep us safe and who take an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. And every situation that they're going into, they don't know whether they're going to be able to come back to their families. And so it's so important that as a community, and especially as a city council, that we recognize their contributions, past, present, and ongoing into the future.
First of all, kudos for you all doing that. I don't think we can remember them enough, for giving that huge sacrifice. But also, you touched on a good point there is I was talking to a police officer the other day. We were talking about, you get out of that car when you're a police officer and you walk up to the person that you're encountering, you have no idea what to expect, number one. And if things do go sideways, it unfortunately becomes all reactionary. And a lot of the things that come out and everything like that on things like that are like, well, the police officer should have done this. It's split second reaction stuff, and I commend our police officers for everything that they do. So good for you for remembering them. Switching gears, you've had a busy week with city council meetings. Tuesday
Yeah.
night, the regular city council meeting. Any surprises out of that?
No, it was, I think, a long meeting, but a productive meeting. We discussed our updated wildfire mitigation plan, and as a result of the tragic fires in January, what there was council direction to have Bob Whalen and Sue Kemp update our 2019 wildfire mitigation plan, and they did just that within the 90-day period as promised. And so the next step is sort of implementation. We talked about the need for utility undergrounding. The plan discusses the use of AI technology and how we can have cameras that are able to detect wildfires early, because that's really, we know when you can put them out. It was a collaborative process where our water districts, both Laguna Beach County Water District and South Coast Water District, were involved, and they spoke about their role in ensuring that we have the water supply to deal with wildfires. We talked about fuel modification and the regulatory process, including the constraints that exist in California that make it so difficult to, especially when you're under CEQA and then within the coastal zone, where it can take up to 3 years to get these zones approved. And our goal, the governor has an executive order that basically says, like, we're no, it's everything's exempt. And so how do we take advantage of that executive order to get those zones approved so that we can, create these the necessary fuel modification that we need to protect the community? So a lot of great work on that plan. And I think now the next step is how do we implement that? And that's going to be a key budget question because it really comes down to priorities. What I suggested, my proposal is that we should really be putting 10% of our general fund, which would be around $10 million a year into wildfire prevention. I think we need to reallocate funds from other priorities and put it into wildfire prevention because at the end of the day, there's really nothing more important. The question is not if, but when the next wildfire happens. So, there's wants and there's a lot of things that I want in terms of, the city and city budget, but then there's needs. And when you look at wildfire, that's prevention, that's a need that comes above wants. And so we need to prioritize accordingly.
Couple of things that you hit on in there is one is I remember when you initially ran for city council, some of the stuff was he's so young and those kind of things. When you start talking about things like AI and getting ahead of these kind of things and everything, I hate to say it, but I'm an old guy and that stuff, I don't get all that stuff, and to have a mind like yours on council to help guide that stuff through. I mean, we are really blessed to have that. So good to have you aboard and to see your developing mind become a part of that. And I say that joke.
Well,
Um,
now my brain's fully developed. So
yes, that's good. Yes, you crossed that threshold. Good for you. Okay, you mentioned budget. Allocating, 10%, maybe towards that. And in another week or so, you have a town hall where you're or a meeting where you're going to do kind of a first pass at the budget to get the community in front of that. What are your challenges and things like that on putting that budget together?
yeah, and so I'm still the budget came out I think last week. It's on the city website, so anyone's welcome to review it and provide any input to me and to the city council and city staff. I've started to do my deep dive on it. I do think that overall we need to identify a way to cut costs where possible, and whether that's with, our contracts that we have. I talked with the city manager and I've talked about the idea of, okay, let's find the 10 biggest contracts that we have at the city with different vendors, and then are there ways that we could renegotiate those contracts or find ways to save money? Are there vacant positions that don't necessarily need to be filled? Are there I mean, I think we need to go above and beyond in terms of identifying cost savings, that can, save us money over time. One of the things that I've been excited about is there's this company called Procure America, and what you do is you bring them in, you look at all your bills for like electricity, for cell phone, for different things, and what they know how to do is basically renegotiate it, and then they take a percentage of the cost savings, but then you save money over time. So I think already saved. I don't have the number off the top of my head. In the tens, at less than 100,000, but in more than I think 50, in terms of money on our Edison bills. And so just looking for cost savings like that, we really need a culture of trying to find every dollar that we can because we want to be putting money into, infrastructure and public safety and efficient government services. And while still, retaining and attracting the best and the brightest city employees because, it's a tough labor market out there. So it's definitely a balancing act. I'm glad we have Dave Kipp as our city manager to help us navigate this.
Well, it's interesting on budget because costs just go up.
Exactly.
Operating something like, the city, I mean, salaries go up, costs go up, everything goes up. Revenue doesn't necessarily go up on an equal amount to all of that stuff because, you're not you're not, your deal at the end of the day is not measured in sales, it's measured in providing services, and services can be expensive. So
Exactly.
big
Exactly.
challenge. Now, when's that meeting come up with the budget? Do you know?
I think we have it's the budget and it's going to be a study session and it's next Tuesday from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. So that's if
Okay.
you want to weigh in on the budget ahead of, there will be multiple hearings on the budget, but that's the sort of the first step in the process.
Okay. Now, speaking of meetings and everything, you had a meeting earlier this week with a joint meeting with the school board, and that was a planned meeting. It wasn't,
Last night. Yeah.
wasn't because anything, because of the publicity and everything, and some of the challenges the school board's been having in getting the two parts of their board together in front of the community. How'd the meeting go, and what were the biggest, outtakes of that?
Well, so I think what and I said this at the beginning of the meeting, we're separate and distinct entities. We have a different role than the school board does. But at the end of the day, we all, have an investment in having the best schools that can exist. Like I feel lucky that I was able to go through the Laguna Beach school system, and there's no reason why we shouldn't have the best facilities, the best school district in the state of California. That's really how I feel about our schools. And so, so what we talked about at our meeting were opportunities for joint collaboration. So President Perry, and it's funny because she was my third grade teacher. So we came up with an agenda.
Everybody knows the mayor.
Yeah, so and she knew me in third grade, so that's the funny part. But we had so there was a consensus on moving forward with a memorandum of understanding related to the 45-meter pool that's moving forward, and that sounds like it's on schedule based on what we heard last night. We talked about the what was the other item? Sustainability, collaboration on that, because the school district has an ambitious plan to basically get to net zero by 2030 in terms of carbon emissions. And even if someone doesn't care about sustainability or carbon emissions, that plan will actually reduce their costs over time. It was a very impressively, I read the document and I found it impressive. And then, the city, meanwhile, is working on solar and procurement related to energy efficiency and things like that. So there was consensus that we should collaborate on best practices and how we can leverage the necessary tax credits and everything. And so just collaborate on sustainability initiatives, because why should we both be trying to figure out the same problem when we can do it in a collaborative way? So that was another item of consensus. And then there was also discussion. There's an issue on school district-owned property, next to the open space where people are illegally going in there. And I guess Chief Calvert raised some alarming numbers of the amount of people that are doing that, and especially when we think about wildfires and all of that. So there was also consensus to move forward in terms of collaborating on dealing with that public safety challenge. I've been working with Chief Calvert and Acting Superintendent Dixon on, so for years at El Moro, there's been an issue where when people call 911, it gets, because it's technically not City of Laguna Beach. So for some reason, it gets routed to, the Orange County Sheriff's Department, but they're not Laguna Beach is the closest,
Sure.
force. And so that kind of delay in terms of, having to go from one dispatch to another, you know, that's just not something that we want. And so this has been something that's been talked about for years, I guess. And it seems like a very simple solution to me. So we're trying to find a way to actually get this thing done so that when you call 911 at El Moro, we know for a fact that it's gonna go to Laguna Beach Police Department. Um, and so I really appreciate Chief Calvert's work on that. And I also, what I pointed out at the meeting is we have a longstanding collaboration on our school resource officer program where we fund 50/50 to school resource officers that play an important role in protecting the students in our district.
Sure. Very important. Hey, listen, finally, want to touch on something. Sunday is Mother's Day.
Yes.
I have been out in the community, Alex, and I've met your mother before. It's a special time, first of all, in the Rounaghi family. How are you going to celebrate? And do you have something to say to the mothers around the community?
Well, I don't think I would be. I mean, my mom's like the most important person in my life, and I mean, she's the smartest person I know as well. So, um, but I'm so grateful for my mom and all that she's done for me, and I think that you know everyone out there who's lucky to have their mom, here with them, there's something to celebrate. So I'm grateful to have the best mom that there can be. So, yeah.
It's and I commend you on that. And as I said, I've met your mother before. This is actually going to be the first Mother's Day I'm going to go through without a mother in
Oh,
my
I didn't
entire
realize
life.
that.
And it's my reminder to everybody would be that time comes too soon, and you don't think that that's ever going to happen. But when it does happen, it's a lonely part of your life. So
Yeah.
to all the mothers out there, happy Mother's Day to everybody. And Alex, I will catch up with you next week. Keep up the good work.
Looking forward to it. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.